All right, folks, welcome to another exciting edition of your friendly neighborhood with your friendly neighborhood Professor Cag. Um, that is indeed I says me. Your friendly neighborhood Professor Cag swinging through the hallways, highways, and byways of a local Zoom room near you. Well, today I guess we can say that we're actually in the YouTube boom room. So hello, folks. Heidi, howdy, hody. How is everyone doing out there in the YouTube's land? In the land of the YouTubes. Let's see. Do we have any participants in here? Hmm. Let's give people a couple of minutes just to join us. Sorry, I was running a little bit behind here, only because I couldn't find the link. um, there we go. There we go. Miss Chandra Barrett, how are you doing today? So weird. I thought I was in your chat and then I clicked notification. Anywhere, completely different outfit. Oh no. Hmm. Maybe that was like an old video or something like that. I'm not quite sure. But very lovely to have you joining us here in the YouTube boom room, Miss Chandra. How's your week going so far? Oh wow. Yeah, okay. Well, maybe wow. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't even know if I had on a completely different outfit. This is the only thing I had on today. Maybe that was another person. I'm not sure. Um, Chris, what's going on? What's going on? I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Man, I got to tell you. So there's a lot going on. As y'all know, we don't live in ordinary times, and the fact that we don't live in ordinary times actually amplifies the things that would usually be ordinary or even extraordinary, and it amplifies them even more. So this tonight, I'm gonna actually keep a pretty tight schedule tonight. I've got some family matters to attend to this evening that were completely unexpected. But I just wanted to kind of highlight that for you all. Really, to say we haven't even submitted the first essay yet, and already this semester is opening up with a bit of craziness. Okay. So I completely understand. Listen, this is craziness in my life. I'm only talking about myself here. Right. So I can only imagine what that might actually be like for each and every one of you all too, as well. Okay. Let me just say, first and foremost, with I think three of my classes, you all have essays that are due this Sunday. I have another class whose essay is not due until later, I think, according to the course schedule. It's from African American Lit class. Um, y'all, I handle submissions in this classroom here with Grace. So here's the thing: don't not submit something. Okay, we I will always give you feedback on your writing, especially if you get something done early. But if you don't actually get something done early, or rather, if you feel like you're working all the way down to the wire, that's a part of it. Go through that, okay? Do not avoid that. Don't sit up here and tell me no, CAG. I just couldn't get my head wrapped tight. I couldn't get it. I couldn't actually submit something. Let's try to avoid um, that area, that part of the journey, or that turn in the journey, and get to submission. Okay, we want to actually push this thing all the way through to the finish line. um, that being said, that's my first primary response, right, to writing assignment submissions. My secondary response: I understand if things occur. This is part of the reason why I'm telling you about the craziness, is just unexpected and things getting amplified, right? I understand if unexpected emergencies happen as well. Again, don't not submit something. Let me know if Sunday comes and I don't see you have a submission. That's going to tell me that you didn't actually submit. That's going to tell me that you didn't complete the assignment, you didn't complete the task. And so, we want to try to avoid that as much as possible. But again, if there's some changes, if there's something unexpected that had popped up that's going to prevent you from submitting on time, get in contact with me immediately, okay, and let me know so that way we can figure something out. All right. Um, that also too being said, I want to actually pivot a little bit since about two-thirds of my class actually have an essay that's due this Sunday. I want to focus on um, some ideas and strategies surrounding the composition of this essay, the critical memoir, the narrative. And I also want to walk you all through the writing assignment submission process. Okay. Um, so it's not open to submit. Excuse me. I don't believe that you can submit just yet, but I'll walk you through as much as I can on my end to show you all the steps. It's a fairly straightforward process. It should be easily accessible. And if anybody has any questions, I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record. Reach out and touch a brother, okay? Either through Slack, email, or Canvas inbox. All right, folks. Okay, so Chris, that's how I'm doing, man. I'm sorry for my long-winded response. Let's get on into the part of what I have to share with you all today. I'm gonna move some things here around, pull up some examples here. Okay, let's see here. By the way, in the meantime and in between time of me setting up all of these components and pieces, super hip hop fan here. Anybody heard that new J. Cole? Thoughts, comments, responses, emotionally justifiable outbursts are always welcome in response to the new J. Cole album. Love to hear from y'all on it. I'm still processing my way through it myself. Okay, all right. I am here. Let me see if I can share my screen. Oh yeah, that's right. Let me see now. Grab that window. There we go. All right, excellent. Okay, so let's first and foremost start with the writing assignment prompt. I'm going to use my English C1000 class as the model here. Folks who are in my English C1001 class, you can follow along. The steps are generally the same, or at least the placements are the same. So it should be fairly easy to follow along. Folks who are in my African American Lit class, again, placements are very well. I think the placements are slightly different because they're located in a module that has not been published yet, the assignment prompt. But the mechanics are going to be the same. So if you all are in my African American Lit class, you can indeed follow right along. There we go. Okay, so let me go here to the student view. All right, make sure. All right, looks like everybody can still see. Perfect. All right. So if you are joining me from English C1000 or English C1001, you all can just follow along. I'm in modules, and I want to get directly to course module number 3, which is where you'll see this week's module as well as the assignment prompt, plus the area or the location where you would submit it. Those are one and the same, the assignment prompt and the place where you are going to submit it. So this is actually a culmination of what we were first introduced to in course module 1 in terms of either narrative, excuse me, voice and revision or narrative structure. And then course module two, which again is either, excuse me, sorry, course module one, which was the multiple intelligences and the student info surveys. Course module two, which was dependent upon which class you were in, either C1000 or C1001. You would have been introduced to either voice and revision or narrative structure, and then culminating in course module number three. So this is the sum total of those three course modules coming together and informing your composition process for this first writing assignment number one here. Okay, that's where this information here, as well as the assignment prompt itself, the idea for the assignment prompt, is derived from. And it's also too derived from our course readings that we've had, not only in Canvas, but also too in our course text, right? So for my C1000 class, that would be the Riz's Tao of Wu, pillars 1 through 3, plus the introduction. And then in my English C1001 class, that would have been The Misadventures of an Awkward Black Girl, all the way up to page 140, I believe we're actually in this week, if we're not concluding the novel. As a matter of fact, I think we're up to 140 this week, and then next week we actually finish the novel. Okay. So those are your two, if you're in either one of those classes, those are the two kinds of models structurally that we could actually follow, the examples that you could actually look to in order to formulate or to structure and arrange the ideas in your narrative. Okay. Let's take a look at the writing assignment prompt itself, just so that way we could dive into the real nitty gritty. So first and foremost, this here is writing assignment number one, critical memoir. That's the kind of essay that we're writing, right? Located here in the upper right-hand corner. The due date, February 22nd, 2026. You're going to submit this below, okay? So because of my role as as an instructor, this is all that kind of shows up, at least on my end. On your end, it should actually be a little bit different. You should actually see at least a blue button that allows for you to submit. Okay. I did receive one message that said, or that asked me about where to submit because he didn't see something on, I think, this particular page. Let me know if it's not allowing you to submit. Then that means that I need to go back and double check some of the settings. Okay. Um, Y'all can definitely let me know in the chat at any point in time throughout the night. All right. So first and foremost, let's get right on into the prompt itself. Memoirs are a kind of writing used to narrate and analyze significant experiences in our lives. In a 3 to 5 page essay, recall, retell, and analyze a specific event or even a series of related events in which you had to overcome an obstacle, whether that obstacle be physical, right? Could have something to do with your body. It could be something that's external to you, right? Mental, again, this could actually have something to do with your perception, right? Or also too, could have something to do with your mind itself, right? Or even emotional, right? So something that has to do with the socio-affective realm, right? Something that actually affects you, affect, not effect, right? But affect with an A, meaning that it kind of shapes or, pricks or sparks or, uh, uh, huh. Stimulate. That was the word that I was looking for. Stimulates your affective sensibilities, right? So this is an obstacle that you have to overcome, right? This is something in one of those realms, right? Or it could even just quite simply be a specific person or a group of people, even, right? That impedes your progress on either developing a more positive sense of self or achieving one's goals, or in other words, in essence, right, an obstacle that pops up on the road to you developing a growth mindset, right? Which is a part of what Howard Gardner introduces us to, although the theory is not necessarily taken from him. It actually is a theory that's overlapped and that is intertwined with his theories in a lot of ways. The growth mindset refers to self-perception, at least according to the research theorist Carol Dweck, um, who introduced and coined the concept of the mindsets. Um, it refers to a perception of one's attributes as well as their abilities as being not yet finished, but on the road or on its way to being developed, right? Someone who has a perception of challenges that they get confronted with. And, it refers to one who actually perceives those challenges, excuse me, who perceives obstacles as challenges, not quite a reflection on their abilities, right? Or on how they see themselves and their potential, right? So, an individual with the growth mindset is someone who, I mean, there are a ton of kind of popular cultural references and examples since this concept here has actually grown in popularity, especially over the past 15 years, right? Everyone from Kobe Bryant to Usain Bolt, right, to Serena Williams, to Beyonce Knowles, right? These are all individuals who embody a certain kind of ethos and a kind of character that says, when confronted with challenges, or rather, when confronted with obstacles, that they might not be able to actually overcome that hump just yet. But you know what? With training, with critical reflection, with connecting with key resources and mentors, even people to kind of gather new perspectives, right? They can overcome it, right? Through hard work, right? Through grit, perseverance, and dedication, they can actually overcome it. I'm curious, what does that story there look like for you, right? I'm starting from the most broadest kind of form, um, the most broadest outrun of examples here, but the most direct and clear example that we could actually use to kind of imagine what this notion of a growth mindset is, or to even kind of envision some examples of it, would be and are Issa Rae and also the RZA. Okay, right? Their life's journey. They consistently return back to this theme, this notion of not only a certain kind of awkwardness or a certain, which leads to a certain kind of alienation, right? Being set apart, separate from, but they also refer to the ability to, or they refer to their tendency to be resilient and to have the ability to come back, to recover, right? From, in certain cases, if we're talking about Issa Rae, right, personal embarrassment, right, awkwardness, social awkwardness. If we're talking about this in the case of the RZA, right, then we're talking about his ability to recover, right, from making poor choices in his life, right? What what has your obstacle actually been? What obstacles have popped up in your life on your journey or on your road to developing a growth mindset? That's what this particular assignment here is all about, right? And you've already started this assignment in certain kinds of ways, or at least you started to gather, or what we call, right, the first step in the writing process, which everybody should have actually learned about all the way up until this week, right, from the Voice from Your Vision PowerPoint. Right, the first step in the writing process refers to planning and shaping, and that's precisely what you all were doing when you completed the discussion board number 2. You also, right, took steps to plan and shape your essay, right? To develop materials that you could therefore incorporate into your essay when you completed discussion board number 1. When you engaged in a critical reflection on what your multiple intelligences were, which is why some of you got the comment that you need to complete the survey. Okay, there were many of you in a lot of my classes, and when I say many, I just mean like more than 5 out of 30 in each class, right? Who guessed in their introductions that you all typed and wrote out to me in discussion board number 1 that your multiple intelligence was X, Y, or Z, right? That question was not meant for you to guess. That question was actually following the consecutive order of the lesson in the TED Talk that actually preceded it, right? As well as the survey and things of that sort. So if you receive that note, especially on your discussion board number one, that you have to actually complete the survey, right? Or it sounds like you're guessing, right? Go back and complete the survey so that way you can begin to paint, right? Or see, have revealed for you, right? This larger picture of yourself, your approaches to learning, right? Or rather the ways that you see patterns and whether or not your own perception of yourself, right? And your learning, right? Your own sense and perception of intelligence falls in alignment with what it is that the pops up for you as a result on the surveys. Okay. Right. But my point here is if you started or if you completed discussion board number one and also discussion board number two, then you got started on your writing assignment, or at least you have materials to actually pull from. Right. So let's proceed. Your ultimate goal here, right? So, first and foremost, you are writing a narrative, okay? Right? Of the kind that is reflected in the narrative structure PowerPoint, in the organizational scheme and form of arrangement that is listed in the narrative structure PowerPoint, you with which you would have to have actually read through it. Okay, we'll go over a part of it today, but you would have to have read through it in order to understand what it is that I'm referencing. Right. What you see down here at the bottom of the writing assignment itself, right? And I've had some conversations with some students in either office hours or just kind of through email or Canvas inbox messages. This is not what you see below in this section that says this essay should include. This is not the organizational structure or scheme, right, of the assignment itself. This refers to the ingredients that you would want to actually include in the essay itself, right? So, and when I say the ingredients, I mean, um, I'm going to show you specifically what I'm going to be grading on, right? Throughout this our talk tonight. So, right, these are ingredients that would help to make your narrative, that would help to enhance your narrative. I'm not only or even strictly, right, exclusively grading you on these things. Okay. There are some there was a video that I wanted to actually try to post up, but for some odd reason Canvas wasn't, it was giving me some trouble. So I haven't been able to actually post this video from week 2 where I'm discussing with you all the importance of or using this analogy of like taco or spaghetti, right? Um there out of all of my friends' houses that I've been over to when on just random days when their parents were cooking tacos, or even spaghetti, right? Every household that I've been to has cooked tacos and or spaghetti differently, right? They all have the same basic kinds of ingredients, but the way in which they actually put it together, it's completely different, right? And it's been some houses that I've been over to has been have been or they've done some extreme things, things that I would consider to be extreme for a taco or spaghetti. If you put ketchup on your tacos, no disrespect, however, that's a bit extreme for me and my personal taste buds. I have some of my best friends who certainly do that. Right? Okay, ketchup is kind of like that's subjective, right? So you can have it or you cannot have it on a taco, right? Stick with me here in this analogy. Right? However, they have some of the core basic ingredients of a taco, right? That'll even allow them to kind of dress it up or dress it down with ketchup. They have a shell, they have meat, and they have some sort of type of condiment that they put on there, right? Onion, cilantro, lettuce, cheese, tomatoes, whatever it is, right? If you have those three basic ingredients, right, then you can, as long as you have those three basic ingredients, right, you can dress it up or dress it down however it is that you would like, right? That's what this essay should include. That's what those elements on the this essay should include refer to, right? These are elements in which an already established foundation is provided in your narrative, right? You have the core basic things that inform the structure of a narrative. This is what we went over in the narrative structure. PowerPoint, right? Those are the core basic foundations. You can't change those. Those need to be in there. It's your foundation. Now, you can dress it up. You can put taco on your ketchup if you want to, right? You can put taco on, you can put ketchup on it. I'm so sorry if I said that in reverse. You can put ketchup on your taco if you would like to, right? You can put jalapenos on your taco if you would like to, right? You can put nopales on your tacos if you would like to, right? It's completely up to you. That's what these things here are. These are things, these are elements of the narrative genre, right? Of the critical memoir genre that can help to enhance your already established foundation of narrative structure. Okay. Right. So these are all elements that you have been introduced to in the narrative structure. PowerPoint. You saw each and every one of these elements in there. Central idea, theme, dialogue and action, right? That refers to the development of plot, right? Or rather, section number 3, right? Conveying action and dialogue, right? Imagery, that's under voice. Voice is voice, right? That's one of the critical components of how to establish your own presence within the narrative itself. Okay, these are just kind of I'm just focusing the magnifying glass. That's what these elements um, that's what these elements here are. Okay, it's just a fine tuning of the magnifying glass, which already has an established foundation. Okay, all right. All right. So let me pause right here for a quick second. Any questions on the assignment prompt itself? Are we clear in terms of what the expectations are for this writing assignment here? Writing assignment number 1. Talk to me, chat. Chat. Dun, 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 dun. Let me see. I absolutely love the survey. Start again. Hey, all right now, Miss Chandra. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Listen, I'm trying to tell you, if it were up to the SAT and whatever standardized test that we took way back in the Stonehenges, I'm not that smart, and I should not make it here. But I was also too a very notoriously horrible test taker, right? Excellent. Okay, Miss Chandra is with it. She understands. Cool. Looks like I got a few other people who are here in the chat too. Chat, talk to me. Let me know if you have any questions on the assignment prompt at any point in time throughout this evening. I will certainly pause for a second and go ahead on and address those questions. So I'm going to continue on forward at this particular. That way I can highlight a couple of things for you all. Let me actually talk with you. Let me show you. Okay. Let me yank the curtain down right quick. Okay. On how it is that I'll be grading you. I don't even think that there'll be a mystery. I want y'all to actually know. I'm gonna give y'all this information up front. Now, it's important that you understand, first and foremost, I am not one of those instructors that says that grading is arbitrary. That's it's highly problematic. I actually take a lot of pride in terms of how it is that I develop an approach to assessing your work. You all are taking my class. My class is not easy. And I do not suffer the reputation that it is such. However, I also do not believe that you should waft around in the mystery of my vision for assessment. Okay. So take a look. Take a look here. And I want you to, I will read through this, but I want you all to read with me as I describe or as I'm vocalizing and also narrating my approach to grading. Okay. This is I'm yanking the curtain down. Okay. Listen, I don't want nobody in here to actually be uninformed. Okay. This is my approach to grading. This is what I'm looking for in terms of A papers and how they function rhetorically, right? These are the maneuvers and moves that A papers, B papers, and even C papers and below make, right? The general kind of maneuvers that I see them actually making. This goes beyond some of the specific ingredients that I introduced to you all in the PowerPoint on narrative structure. And this moves to paint you all a picture, an outline of what the A paper does, what the B paper does, the C paper, and the D's, and so on and so forth, right? Again, this here is meant to kind of paint with a very intentional broad brush, right? The kind of outline, right? Like when I was younger, I used to actually do this. I used to trace. Still do that these days, but I was a super comic nerd, so I would like get some tracing paper from CVS, put a comic book right underneath it, find a picture that I like, and then just start outlining the edges of it, right? That's all that this is doing right here. This is painting you the outline, right, of my approach, my vision, and methodology on how grades, on how papers that receive certain grades maneuver, right, or function, right? We will be developing a capacity for assessing the what we call the rhetorical effectiveness, right? Or in other words, the the maneuvers that writers make in their throughout this entire semester, especially in unit number 2 when we go over rhetorical analysis. So let's start here. Ideas of papers and why they receive the grades they do. The A paper, defined as the as distinction, the A paper has a clearly defined, insightful, and appropriate thesis statement. Um, in essay genres that we're writing, some genres require thesis statements. Other genres, like the critical memoir, does not have a thesis statement, but rather it has a main idea or a central idea, which is why you see those two elements there repeating throughout the PowerPoint and also too on the assignment prompt and throughout some of the handouts that were provided on the overall essay structure and paragraphing. When I look at a papers, right, it reflects a clear and concise and smooth development of this central idea, right? So whatever the central idea of your essay is, right, in the case of a memoir, right, what we would see first hinted at in the title, right? That's why it's so important for us to have a title, right? What we would also see illustrated and followed up with at the end of the first paragraph or at the end of the introduction, right? The central idea being clearly stated, or in other words, right, for a critical memoir narrative, right? The moral or the lesson that is learned, right? Okay, right? That's how we communicate the central idea, or in other words, the theme, which is a reference from the narrative structure PowerPoint, right? Whatever that idea is, we need to see it unfolded and developed. You need to show us how it is that you arrived at that lesson right there, right? The A paper does a great job of demonstrating, right, the pathway that led them to this discovery, right? The discovery of their central idea, right? Or the discovery that is communicated in the form of their central idea. The transitions between these ideas, right, that appear throughout the entire essay are both, they're clear, they're effective, right? You're clearly using transition words, you're clearly using transitional phrases, right? You're drawing, you're organizing and arranging your ideas in a clear and effective pattern or strategy. That pattern could be sequential, that pattern could be spatial, that pattern could be um, um, uh, even chronologically, right? But you have in those sections, right, or in the development of those ideas, right, and how they're arranged, right, first, second, third, right, so on and so forth. You're also using specific details, well chosen examples, even metaphors, right? You're illustrating with in ways that appeal to your readers' senses, right? What happened and what was said, okay, right? You're using clear cut examples and specific details to illustrate the point, the larger point that is your central idea, okay? Also, you're not using words, or excuse me, you're not using phrases or sentences the same sentences over and over and over again, right? And you're also utilizing language that engages your reader, right? You're not just quite simply saying, right? Just to give like an extreme example, right? I said, and then entering your quote, right? She said, and then entering your quote, right? I returned, entering your quote. She responded, answering your quote. That should not pop up throughout the entire length of your essay, right? That should not be the sum total of your essay, right? But rather, it should be a careful combination, right? Of, description, right? Narrative kind of setup, right? And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about like the actual structure, and just as soon as we get through this section here, right? It should include, right, a little bit of prose, right, where you have some kind of setup or introduction. You should also to include action and also dialogue, which help to move the story right on along in that sequential order according to the arrangement scheme that you have, right? You just want to quite simply focus on what happened and what was said. This is for the critical memoir. And then you want to actually conclude the essay with a final critical analysis of the experience that helped to reveal the deeper meaning that's hidden, that lies hidden at the heart of your central idea, right? Okay. That's what the A paper does in short, right? Or in summary. They make strategic use of literary devices, right? They have clear and purposeful voice all the way throughout. They use appropriate grammar and also punctuation, spelling, and careful use of mechanics. They also have a very clear formatting for their paper. All right. The B paper deviates from this in slight and subtle kinds of ways, pronounced ways, but still slight nonetheless, right? So, like for example, the B paper, just to kind of give you a general summary, right? The B paper offers, while it might actually include a thesis statement or a central idea, and the reader is able to grasp like your overall main point, right? We can follow your kind of essay structure, right? Some of the examples that exist within the meat and potatoes of the essay, right, are repetitive or severely underdeveloped, right? The examples and specific details are unclear, muddy, but they might not even be there, right? That's one of the major distinguishing features of what the A paper does versus what the B paper does, right? The B paper does not have its subtle details, its supporting details developed, right? They might be present, right? Or they might have the potential for development, but they're not developed. They're not there yet. You see what I'm saying? Right. So the organizational structure in that kind of way, right, of the development of ideas, excuse me, not the organizational structure, but rather the development of ideas is unclear to that extent, right? It might even be that they have a couple of good examples and that their overall organizational structure or arrangement of their ideas is not clearly organized, right? In this way, when I refer to organization, right, when I'm looking at organization, what I'm looking at here is how it is that an essay, especially in the topic sentence and the transition sentence of just about every paragraph, right, I'm looking specifically at how this essay develops the logical and verbal bridges that connect each paragraph, topic sentence to transition sentence, right? The first sentence to the sentence that comes before it, right? To that degree and extent, right? That's another feature of, or rather, an alternative feature, right, of the B paper, right? So you could not have your ideas and supporting details fully developed, or your organizational scheme could be unclear. Okay, right. Now, when we move on to the C paper, does not have its specific or supporting details developed, and it certainly has, or it might actually kind of only gesture towards an overall arrangement scheme or organizational scheme throughout the essay. In either case, both the supporting details and the overarching organizational coherence of the essay suffers. Right? It's not fully developed. That's typically what I see in a C paper. They might have a main idea. They may have a title, but that title, that central idea is not fully developed, at least not in any um, not in any way that develops a certain level of coherence within each paragraph, right? So they might not even have the supporting details. They may not even have a topic sentence, but they may have like one component, right? They may have a topic sentence, but no supporting details. They may have no topic sentence or not a clear topic sentence and some potentially good supporting details. They could have a clear cut topic sentence and pretty well developed supporting details, but they don't transition to the next idea or tie it in with the next idea that follows very well, right? In that sense, they don't have strong coherence, right? This is what I see that the C paper does, right? Okay. So that's my quick overview, right? And then so D papers and below, this oftentimes let me tell you, let me say it like this. This is often the case with folks who do not follow the instructions of the assignment or who do not develop the minimum expectation for the assignment. It's not even so much that they don't have it almost never has anything to do with them not having a good idea, right, of what to write about. Um, it most of the time whenever I give a D or something below a C, it almost always has to do with them not developing their essay in such a way that meets the minimum expectations of the assignment itself, right? So, for example, this essay should be 3 to 5 pages. 3 pages is all the way down to the bottom of the page. It's not two and a half, right? So, you can actually, like in high school, yeah, I know some folks out in my high school, right? They used to actually say, "Well, I got a third page, so that's 3 pages." No, it's not. That's two and a half. You can't go to the ice cream truck, if ice cream trucks are even still around doing this anymore. I'm so sorry for my old school references here, folks, but bear with me, please, because you can't buy these things like this anymore except for on the ice cream truck. If you go to the ice cream truck with $1 expecting to get sour powers, right, or the sour belts, right, and they cost 10 cents per belt, right? You go there with $1, then they're going to give you 10 sour belts. Okay. If you go to the ice cream truck and you want 10 sour belts and you only have 75 cents or 50 cents, they're going to give you, if you have 50 cents, 5 sour belts. Why? Because they're 10 cents a piece. If you have 75 cents, then they're going to give you seven and a nickel back. Okay. My point is, you can't get 10 only showing up with 3/4 or 50% of the total amount. Okay. That's what I want to highlight for you. That's oftentimes what the case is with folks who receive below a C paper in my class, right? Other times, and this here is kind of rarely the case, right? In a very rare kind of case, somebody will submit the wrong kind of paper, right? And so that would oftentimes result in the case of them receiving below a C. But in any event, the in any event, the paper um, that receives below a C is not necessarily a bad paper. Rather, they just need to sit down and talk with me. If you do end up receiving below a C, then you do need to actually sit down and you need to talk with me. We need to schedule an office hours so that we can figure out our revision strategy. Okay. Um, Side point on revisions. Okay. Um, I do allow revisions if you're willing to put in the work, I am willing to regrade. All right. um, but you will have to schedule an office hours appointment with me if you do want to revise any of your writing assignments. All right. Last point for the night. I want to talk a little bit because I mentioned this several times throughout the entire evening. The organizational structure, or rather, the arrangement scheme of the narrative itself. Okay. The narrative itself, this is an example of what the each sectional memoir should include, right? Is a summary of the major sections that go into a narrative essay, right? and also a breakdown of the details that should be included within each section. Okay. Those of you who've already read and who have successfully taken notes on the narrative structure PowerPoint all the way throughout the end will see this organizational scheme, see me, this organizer located at the end of that narrative PowerPoint structure. Okay. So you do indeed have to make sure that you go through each of the major ingredients for a narrative, right? There are plenty of examples that are actually provided there. I'm breaking them down. And then you also have to, excuse me, get once you get through each of the sections, the six major sections of the components of narrative structure PowerPoint, then you will actually be able to see the graphic organizer for the narrative. Part of the reason why is because you want to learn what those things are individually before you see them actually coming together as a whole, right? And that's part of the idea of this PowerPoint here. Okay. So, first and foremost, this writing assignment must have a title. The assignment number itself does not count as a title. I will promptly return your paper back to you if it does not have a title. The work of a title, all titles do a certain kind of work. The title should do the work that echoes what's listed in the central idea, i.e., right, the thesis statement of the narrative, right? Okay. In other words, the main central lesson should be previewed here in the title. That's the work that it should do. Okay. Next, you should also include in that title, right? You should also include, excuse me, sorry, just after that title, your introduction. Now, mind you, this is a major section in the essay, right? While this section here, especially in an essay that's 3 to 5 pages, uh, this should only be one paragraph. Okay. And in that paragraph, you want to include the background, the setting, and the major conflict of your narrative, of your story, right? The background and setting you've already actually started on if you completed discussion board number 2, right? That section entitled The Past, where you have the paragraph where you're describing your background, your neighborhood, your community, right? Your family background, right? The neighborhood that you grew up in, so on and so forth, right? Boom, you already have that. Take that section and you can now remix it into your introduction, right? The major conflicts that you're facing, right, that you're faced with, boom, that's from the future section right there, or even the present section, right? What conflicts are you currently confronted with, right? That's how you get to know your obstacle that you have to overcome, right, or that you had to overcome in order or on the path to the development of your growth mindset, right? The thesis statement, or in other words, right, the central idea, right? I'm only calling it a thesis statement because I do understand that in high school they teach you all that this is a thesis statement. It's not, at least not for the genre, at least not in academic writing at the collegiate level. Right? We don't call that a thesis statement. Rather we call it a central idea, right? A central idea or the main idea. I'm just using this as like a kind of shorthand to bridge with what it is that many of my students have kind of are familiar with it as, right? So it's kind of one and the same. The difference is the genre, right? In a critical memoir, they don't have thesis statements. They call them central ideas. In a nonfiction essay, right, a persuasive, an informative essay, right, research, so on and so forth, they're called thesis statements, right? And there's a formula to how we put them together in those genres. For the central idea here, you want to communicate the thesis statement as the central lesson or the insight that you had to discover, similar to Anna, similar to Issa Rae, right, in The Misadventures of an Awkward Black Girl, right, and Anna in Real Women Have Curves, or the RZA, right, in The Tao of Wu. You want to actually communicate the main life lesson that you actually discovered as a result of coming into conflict with that major obstacle, right? All in one paragraph. That's what this section here does, this introduction. Now, just because it's a section doesn't mean that it's a paragraph, because sections of your essay can have multiple paragraphs, right, within a particular section. Take, for example, the body paragraphs. Here, right, each event can be a paragraph on its own. And the major features, right, how it is that you convey supporting details is through action and dialogue. That's how you convey what happened and what was said. This is where the main retelling of the story is going to take place. The introduction sets it up. The body paragraphs tell what happened and what was said, right? Specifically through the use of supporting details such as action and dialogue. The following section, right? The last section, the final section, refers to the conclusion. This is where you provide your readers with the major resolution, right? The final impression or your overall message. This is where you get to unpack the deeper meaning behind the lesson that you communicated in the central idea, right? Last sentence of the first paragraph, and also too in the title. Notice the title, the central idea, right? Which is the last sentence of the introduction, and the conclusion are all three linked, right? They should focus on revealing the overall message to your audience of what you discovered. Okay. Okay. So, folks, I'm going to stop sharing right here. Let me take a pause for the cause real quick. Right in our last few minutes, I want to stop and ask anybody for questions. Any questions? Do we have any questions in the chat? We got some questions. We got some questions. See, Miss Chandra. Chandra did. Oh my goodness! I'm just now seeing this. Not sure if anyone else is having issues, but I can't hear anything. Can you? Did that persist? Can you not hear me? See or no? Comments, responses, emotionally justifiable outbursts. Anything from the chat this evening? Well, I hope y'all can hear me. All right, folks. So I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Hopefully, you all can see me and hear me still. I will point to one last thing, how to submit your essays. Again, you're going to go, you're going to click on the writing assignment prompt itself. You're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. You can follow the steps of the prompt that's provided there. Again, this is not what it should look like on your end. It should look a little bit different, a lot different. You should actually see an option to submit. It'll have a blue button that'll say submit. And if you upload your essay onto Google Drive, or if you complete it through Google Docs, it should actually provide you with a link to upload from either Google Docs or Google Drive. If you complete your essay utilizing Microsoft Online, Microsoft Word Online, then it should also give you an option to upload from OneDrive. Otherwise, it'll give you the option to upload your essay from the computer. Sorry, there's one other thing. One last thing that I need to highlight for y'all, okay? So I'm underneath modules. I'm gonna click on writing guidelines and format, and I want to open up this post called Writing Assignment Submission Guidelines. I need to remind you all of this. This here is vitally important. This is the overall format that your paper should be composed in. So let me just kind of give you all an example. Okay, so I want to make sure that I have a header, a heading, and also a title, and that my paragraphs are indented. Times New Roman 12-point font, double spacing, no bold anything at all. So let me point to you all. Let me point this out to y'all and show you what this looks like, what this could look like. Share. Okay, so I'm going to share one writing assignment with you all, my personal history statement. And all of you have seen this too, if you've read through the examples of the narratives. Okay, so see here, this is not even MLA format. Okay, so let me show you how to actually address this. So I'm going to actually take and delete this, right? I'm going to actually make sure that I have, and I'm tracking my changes so you can see the changes that I'm making here. I want to make sure that I have my last name and then just the page number. That's it. That's all that I really want here. So if you see, right, I'm in the header section. I just double clicked at the top, right? Just click twice on your mouse. I'm going to include my last name and then just the page number. The easiest way to include your page number is to go here to insert, and then you can click on page number. Click the drop down box, select page number, and here it'll give you an option. You'll see alignment right. You should see the example listed here. Show page number on the first page, yes, and then click OK. Now, for some odd reason, I think probably because there's some setting that's active, it put what I used to have up here on here. This is exactly how I want it to look, right? One space, right? Just my last name, space, and then the page number. So if I click here, right? If I go to each page, now I should also see, right, the same thing pop up, accurate page number reflected. This is what I call my heading, okay? So that's how we do the first step. The next step, if you see here, right, there's no heading. Well, I need to hit enter, and then I'm gonna go to left justified, which is this button here. Then I'm just gonna format. Here's the easiest way that I can possibly do this. Let me go back to the example from the writing assignment submissions format. I'm going to insert, copy and paste it, and I only want to keep the text, right? But look at this. Heck, man, dang it. It threw off my entire formatting. Oh my gosh. Let me see if I can match the destination. Ah, yeah. So if I match the destination format, that might actually work. Let me take out this extra space here. Okay. And it looks like I'm good. I'm good. Okay. So I want to include, I'm going to actually do this the shorthand way, right? So I'm just going to use my name, right? So Damon Cagnolati, right? If I were a student, my professor, I'm going to call them Professor Rogers, right? My English class is English C1000, right? And I am in section, what is it? 33973, right? I'm going to include that 33973, right? Boom. And then I'm going to include the date, right? So the date that this is due is the 22nd of February, right? And then 26. This here is what we call the international standard, where it goes in increasing order, right? From day, month, year, right? That's the standard that I want us to actually follow, because it's also to MLA. Now, if you notice here, right, delete these, right? These are like the prompts, right? So it should only look like this. Come on now. Okay. Come on. Okay, right, so here, right, if you notice, this is all, it looks like it should be, right, properly spaced. Right here I have a title, All right, boom. And I also am starting off my paragraph ended it. It looks like this is properly spaced, but let me double check. Here's how you double check to see if it's properly spaced, right? So I'm going to take, sometimes Microsoft Word will automatically do this. I'm going to take and make everything single spaced. Okay. Now, I should be able to take a look at my paper and just scroll throughout the entire thing and not paragraphs actually end. And if you see here, right, I have absolutely no gaps in between. I have absolutely no egregious gaps, right? And by gap, here's what I mean, right? Right, right? It doesn't look like this, right? You see the space that you have right above and before. I don't have any space. I'm going to take that out if I do, right? Take this out of here, get out the way. All flush, right? And then I'm going to control A, and you can go to either format and then hit paragraph. Okay. And then you'll see this box pop up. You want to go here to where it says line spacing, drop down menu, and you want to select double. Okay. And then press OK. Boom. Now everything is properly spaced. No extra spaces, no bolds, nothing. Okay. It should look plain text just like this. All right. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to walk you all through that. Sorry for running over a few minutes, but I wanted to make sure that you all had an example of how to properly format your paper, so that way it could be ranked for the highest level of submission. I'm going to also post underneath the readings and resources section. I'm going to also post up the file that I shared with you all today, the ideas of papers and the grades they receive, as well as my grading criteria. Okay. These are just tools that you can use in order to kind of evaluate once you get finished with the draft, right, of your essay. You can kind of take a look at what my rubric is describing, and you can see how your paper develops these things and in what range, right, it develops them. Okay, you can kind of give yourself your own score, all right, and then make adjustments accordingly, according to the score that you give your own essay, right, to how it is that you grade your essay. All right. Okay, folks. Well, hey, it's been a plum pleasing pleasure. I am going to stop sharing my screen right now. Folks, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me via Slack. I've received some increasingly more messages on Slack. You all have a discussion board assignment that will make sure that I receive more messages on Slack shortly. Make sure that you all reach out to me either via Slack, Canvas inbox, or even through email. You can also schedule an office hours appointment with me by using the link that's posted in our most recent announcements or even on our course syllabus. Please feel free, select a date, select a time. We'll meet up. I'll answer your questions and help you get to the bottom of any problems or issues you might be having. Okay, folks. Thank you all so much for kicking in with your friendly neighborhood Professor CAG. I want you all to take care of yourselves and each other. Peace.